September 11th, 2018. Air India Flight 101 was about to face the storm of its life. Torrential rain hammered the cockpit, the ILS system had failed, and the runway was swallowed in a wall of fog. To make matters worse, fuel was dangerously low. Every second counted. Every decision could mean the difference between life and death. Could this flight survive the chaos in the skies, or was it destined to become another September tragedy? This is the story of Air India Flight 101. The plane sat on the runway, engines humming softly as lightning flickered across the stormy sky. Inside the cockpit, Captain Rajiv Sharma, experienced and calm, ran through the pre-flight checklist, eyes scanning the instruments with practiced precision. Fuel levels, checked. Flight instruments, checked. Weather radar, checked. Captain, weather report is updated. Heavy rainfall expected during approach. ILS is partially unavailable, said First Officer Anil Mehta, tension creeping into his voice. Captain Sharma remained calm but serious. We've prepared for the worst. Our focus is a safe landing. Passengers boarded unaware of the danger looming ahead. Families, business travelers, tourists, some scrolling on their phones, others munching snacks, some chatting quietly, none sensing the chaos that awaited. Runway lights struggled to pierce the heavy downpour as the plane taxied slowly forward. Ladies and gentlemen, Flight 101 is ready for takeoff. Please fasten your seatbelts, the captain announced. The plane lifted off, gliding through the rain and fog, engines roaring, raindrops cascading across the windshield in slow motion. Wings sliced through the downpour as tension-filled music underscored the moment. Suddenly, cockpit instruments began blinking erratically. ILS failure alert. Captain, ILS signal lost, First Officer Mehta exclaimed. Captain Sharma's voice remained steady. Switching to manual navigation, maintain heading and altitude. Visibility dropped to near zero. Passengers grew anxious, some praying, some wide-eyed with fear. Air traffic control came over the radio. Flight 101, extreme weather conditions. Approach clearance delayed. A fuel warning beeped urgently. First Officer Mehta whispered, "Sir, fuel is critical." Captain Sharma nodded, taking a deep breath as the storm battered the plane. Wind gusts shook the fuselage violently. Alarms and radar warnings filled the cockpit. "Stay calm. Monitor altimeter and airspeed. Descend carefully," he instructed. Passengers reacted in their own ways. A young woman gripped her armrest so tightly her knuckles turned white. A child cried quietly. A businessman muttered under his breath, staring at the floor. The camera switched between cockpit chaos and terrified passengers, capturing every moment of tension. The plane began its approach. Visibility was almost zero as rain lashed the windshield. Landing gear ready. Trying to visually confirm the runway, the captain said. The aircraft nearly missed the runway entirely. Low-altitude turbulence rocked the cabin violently. "Captain, we are dangerously close," First Officer Mehta shouted. In slow motion, the plane barely aligned with the runway lights, wings slicing through the stormy night. Captain Sharma gripped the yoke tightly, sweat on his forehead, rain pelting the windshield. "Hold on, we only have one chance," he whispered. The storm showed no mercy. Rain pounded the fuselage like bullets. Lightning flashed across the sky, illuminating the plane's wings for split seconds. Inside the cockpit, Captain Sharma's hands were steady on the yoke, his eyes scanning every instrument, every dial. First Officer Mehta's knuckles were white as he monitored altitude and airspeed, tension radiating from every movement. Fuel warnings continued to beep urgently. "We don't have much left, Captain," Mehta said, voice tight with anxiety. Sharma didn't respond, his focus absolute. Every second mattered, every decision life or death. The storm was relentless, but so was his resolve. Outside, the runway lights appeared and disappeared through the thick curtain of rain and fog. The plane shook violently as wind gusts tore at the wings. Captain Sharma adjusted the throttle, aligning the aircraft manually, eyes straining to catch any hint of the runway below. He felt the weight of every passenger's life on his shoulders. Descending carefully. "Hold the glide path," he muttered to himself, almost a mantra. Mehta called out readings constantly, their voices the only human sound amid the storm and alarm beeps. The cabin was tense. A young mother clutched her child, murmuring prayers. Passengers exchanged terrified glances. The oxygen of fear and adrenaline filled every corner of the plane. The plane dipped dangerously low over the wet tarmac. The landing gear was down, wheels trembling in the turbulence. "We're too high." "Oh, too low. Steady." Sharma's voice was calm, precise, despite the chaos. The runway lights grew brighter, then vanished behind a wall of rain. Time slowed. Every heartbeat felt like an eternity. Lightning struck close, illuminating the runway just enough for Sharma to lock his eyes on the target. "Now," he whispered, guiding the plane with delicate yet decisive movements. The aircraft descended through violent winds and sheets of rain, wheels barely missing obstacles. The storm howled around them, a beast refusing to let go. The plane touched down. A violent shudder ran through the fuselage as it skidded along the wet runway, water spraying into the night like molten silver. Tires screamed against the slick tarmac. Captain Sharma held steady, braking gradually, maneuvering through every gust. Behind him, Meda's hands were tense but controlled. The plane slowed, then finally came to a complete stop. Silence fell, except for the patter of rain and the occasional rumble of thunder. Passengers exhaled collectively, tears streaming down faces, hands gripping each other in relief. The cabin erupted into quiet applause, subdued sobs, and whispered prayers of thanks. Sharma and Meda exchanged a glance, eyes tired, yet alive with the triumph of having survived a storm that had seemed impossible. Airport emergency crews rushed toward the plane, lights flashing, but the storm had not claimed another life. Flight 101 had beaten the odds. Captain Sharma, drenched but composed, slowly opened the cockpit door. Passengers filed out cautiously, some hugging crew members, others staring at the stormy sky with disbelief. In the aftermath, aviation authorities would later highlight the critical failure of the ILS system and the extreme weather conditions. Experts praised the crew's calm, skillful maneuvering under life-threatening pressure. What could have been a disaster turned into a story of courage, precision, and human resilience. That night, Flight 101 became more than a plane. It became a symbol of how split-second decisions, experience, and unwavering focus can avert catastrophe. For every passenger who stepped onto the rain-soaked tarmac, it was a lesson in gratitude and the fragile beauty of life in the air. And as the storm slowly eased, leaving behind the glistening runway and dark, brooding clouds, one truth remained clear. On that September 11th, 2018, tragedy had been avoided, not by luck, but by skill, courage, and determination.